Hello and welcome to our fourth winter herb school class. Today's topic is going to be on oregano. And as you know, we always start off with a little quote or a poem or a song. So this is a quote from a woman named Alice May Brock. And Alice was actually the subject of a very famous song called Alice's Restaurant that is very often played at Thanksgiving uh, time. And I will put a link to the recording of that song if you want to listen to it. It is very, very, very long, and it was a war protest song from the Vietnam era. And the song was about Alice's restaurant or about the Vietnam War. But Alice was a real person, and Alice had a restaurant. And this is a quote from Alice. Uh, the quote is, "Tomatoes and oregano make it Italian. Wine and tarragon make it French. Sour cream makes it Russian. Lemon and cinnamon make it Greek. And soy sauce makes it Chinese. And garlic makes it good." So the very first line in this quote here is that oregano and tomatoes make it Italian. So we know right off the bat here that oregano is something that is very, very commonly found in Italian cooking. So just with that in mind, we'll talk about the uses. But first, let's talk a little bit about oregano and the botanical name and how it smells and tastes and looks and feels. So oregano is sometimes called wild marjoram. The botanical name for oregano is Origanum vulgare. Now, there is also something called sweet marjoram, which is Origanum marjoram. Okay, they're very, very closely related, and they're also very closely related to another plant that is called Origanum syriacum or zatar, which is an herb that's commonly used in Middle Eastern cooking. And all three of these plants, oregano, sweet marjoram, and zatar, they all look very, very similar. Marjoram, sweet marjoram is the smallest of the three, um, and it has more delicate flowers. Oregano is slightly bigger and the stems are a little woodier than sweet marjoram. And zatar is a much bigger plant with thicker stems, but the leaves are all the same size or the same shapes. The plant is all three plants are the same shape, and oftentimes they would be confused for one another. And in fact, oregano, if you go back a ways and you're trying to look for oregano in an herbal, in a book about herbs, sometimes you won't find it because oregano has only quite recently started to be called oregano. Um, it was more traditionally called wild marjoram. So if you have an old book about herbs and you're trying to find oregano and you just can't find it anywhere, look for wild marjoram and you might find it. So that's a little interesting tip about oregano. Um, it's also wild marjoram. Sometimes you have to look it up by wild marjoram. So let's talk about how it smells and tastes. Really, oregano, I would say that's a spicier smell. It smells like Italian cooking. It's really the spice that we think of, or the herb that we think of when we think of Italian cooking. So when we smell oregano, we think of things like pastas and lasagnas and things like that, chicken parmesan, whatnot. And we think of that taste as the taste of Italian food. Um, it it has woodier stems and has small ovalish leaves. They sometimes have a little bit of furry. They feel a little bit furry. Um, with with marjoram, sweet marjoram, there's not as much fur. With oregano, it's a little furrier and thicker. With za'atar, it's even furrier and thicker and woodier. So they all look similar, but oregano is a little furry, but not too furry. The leaves and the stems are a little bit furry, but not too furry. Not as much as za'atar, but more than marjoram. So these are really, all three of these plants are really interesting to grow them side by side and compare them. These plants that are in that same family, that Oreganum genus, and you can really kind of get a feel for what each one is. So these are interesting ones to look at and feel. Some plants are not quite as remarkable, but with this, it's interesting to compare. All right, so let's talk about a few properties of oregano. Oregano is a stimulant, so it helps stimulate the nervous system or other parts of the body to kind of give you a little bit of pep or energy. It's a carminative. I think we had carminative a little ways back. If you remember, it expels gas and releases pressure on the gastrointestinal system. In short, it helps you burp and it helps you fart. Oregano is also a diaphoretic. A diaphoretic is something that makes you sweat. And oregano is something that we call, it's a hot herb. Oregano oil is a hot essential oil. So oregano definitely has a warming effect on the body, which is part of the reason that we talk about it in the winter, because it can give you that nice warm feeling when you're cold from the cold winter. So let's talk about how we grow oregano. Oregano is a perennial. So a perennial comes back year after year. It is native to the Mediterranean region. So if you've ever looked at the countries around the Mediterranean region, they tend to be warm, dry climates. Um, the soil is not the best soil in the world, not the most rich, humus-rich, dark soil like we think of. It's a little rockier and drier. It is, however, despite the fact that it likes warm, dry climates, it is a hardy plant. It's hardy to -20. It'll come back year after year. It's pretty easy to grow. It does need full sun. Like I said, it's one of those plants, those Mediterranean region plants, so it likes lots of sun, warmth, and dry. But it can withstand some cold too. And like I said, it's a relatively simple plant to grow. You can grow it from seed. I've grown it from seed. I've grown oregano and the other two that I mentioned, sweet marjoram and za'atar, all from seed quite successfully. Um, I know there's some people that have had problems getting them to germinate, but this is not anything I have ever experienced. My oregano plants have always germinated. So just make sure that you're getting seed from a good supplier, and you generally don't have trouble with it. So that's a little bit about growing it. Let's talk about using it. So we use it primarily in Italian culinary dishes. Okay, think pastas, um, chicken parmesan, lasagnas, things like that. Lots of Italian dishes is where we're going to find oregano. You can use it in soups. Um, you can use it in salads. A lot of people use it nowadays as an essential oil, but I do want to warn you about this. Okay, as I mentioned, oregano is a hot oil. Okay, if you put oregano, direct oil, essential oil, directly on your skin, it will burn you and it will hurt. I know this because I've done it before. In my infinite wisdom, I decided to test this theory out, and it does. It hurts. I'm here to tell you that it will hurt you. Um, Keep it away from eyes. You want to be careful, where you put it on your skin. Always, 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 if you're going to use it with a carrier oil. Now, some people do use it to remove things like moles or warts or skin tags, things like that. And it's because it burns the skin off. That's why. Some people use a little bit of the essential oil in cooking, but you want to do that very, 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 very sparingly, like with the tiny, tiny tip of a toothpick. Um, you don't want a lot of oregano oil in what you're using. So while it is a commonly used oil, um, you do want to be very careful with it. And there's actually and this is one I do want to warn you against, that I do not approve of whatsoever. There is a blend that includes oregano oil and a few other different essential oils, and you are supposed to take it and put it in a capsule and then take it for flus. I do not recommend that. You're putting something very, very harsh, undiluted in your stomach, down your throat, that if burns you on the outside if you just put it on your skin. It's not something that you want to take internally. So if you ever come across that, I really caution you against using that. It's really, really, in my opinion, not a good idea. Um, but like I said, it does have other uses, and using just the herb in culinary dishes is great. So please continue to do that. It's a wonderful, wonderful culinary herb. So let's talk about some ways that we can use it. So you can use it. I have a recipe. This is one of my favorite recipes. It's a simple, simple recipe that you can use. I use boneless pork chops with olive oil and pepper and salt. I chop up some sage and some oregano, and I mix all of those things together, brush them on my pork chops, and bake my pork chops and eat them with a little bit of with some vegetables or something, and it tastes really, really good. So that's an excellent, excellent, very quick, very simple way to use fresh oregano and sage too in your cooking. So that's one thing you can. This is a recipe for oregano face toner. So after you wash your face, sometimes you use a toner. This does have tea tree oil um, in it, but it does not have oregano oil in it. We actually make an infusion with our oregano to use for the toner. So that makes it gentler on your face. But it's a really, really good toner, so you can try that as well. So it's a few things you can do with oregano. I hope that you enjoyed the class. Our next class is on parsley. Our last class is on parsley. And so if you have any questions, uh, please feel free to ask them. And I hope that you have a great week. I will see you later. Bye-bye.